Now, similar to what we talked about before with the demand curve, the supply curve we've drawn is strictly showing a relationship between the price and the quantity supplied. It's holding a lot of other things constant. If any of those other things should change, the entire supply curve will shift. And when we have a shift in the supply curve, it's called a change in supply. It's caused by a change in something other than the price of the good or the service that we are talking about. When you have a change in supply, you have either an increase in supply or a decrease in supply. Don't get fooled by these pictures. We're going to walk through both of these together. Let's focus on the left-hand side first. The original supply curve is given here in blue. The new supply curve is given in red. This movement from the blue supply curve to the red supply curve is known as an increase in supply. To see why that's so, let's start by looking at this picture by reading it horizontally. We see that according to the old supply curve, when the price of a barrel of oil was $50, the quantity of oil supplied was 60 million barrels per day. However, something has changed. Something has changed. Maybe there's lower production costs. Okay, so maybe the marginal cost of production have fallen, so that now at $50 per barrel, according to the new supply curve, the sellers are willing and able to provide 80 million barrels of oil per day. So there's an increase in supply, a shift to the right. A vertical interpretation of the supply curve is read by looking at the quantity first. So let's look along the x-axis. What do we see? For the 60 millionth barrel of oil, according to the old supply curve, the seller was willing to sell it as long as they got at least $50 per barrel. That would have been enough to cover their marginal cost. But now that their marginal costs have fallen, they are now willing to provide the 60 millionth barrel of oil for $40. And that's going to be true for each and every quantity if their marginal cost of production have fallen. The supply curve has shifted down, but this is known as an increase in supply. If we turn to the graph on the right-hand side, now we're taking into consideration a situation where the marginal cost of production have increased. So we have the old supply curve, which is the blue line. We're going to show how when you have higher marginal costs, the supply curve shifts up or to the left, and that's what's known as a decrease in supply. Let's start with the horizontal reading. With the horizontal reading, we see that originally at a price of $45, the sellers were willing and able to provide 70 million barrels a day. But now with higher marginal cost, we see that only 17 million barrels of oil will be provided. And that's going to be true. There's going to be less oil provided at each and every price because of the higher marginal cost. So the entire supply curve shifts from the blue line to the red line. There's been a decrease in supply. Alternatively, if we use the vertical interpretation of the supply curve, we have a situation where when you're talking about the 70 millionth barrel of oil, originally the seller was willing to provide it as long as they got at least $45 per barrel. But because of higher costs, they're now only willing to sell the 70 millionth barrel of oil if they get at least $75. The increase, the shift up in the supply curve at each and every quantity suggests that the seller is facing higher marginal costs and is now only willing to sell oil if they get a higher price per barrel. This is known as a decrease in supply.